Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 93 of the Meet the Farmers podcast. I'm your host, Ben Eagle, and today I'm heading north of the border. Before we do, though, I just want to say something about the 100th episode that is just around the corner now. Unbelievable. But I'll be looking back through the Meet the Farmers archive on that with some special guests. And for this, I would love to know what your favourite episode of the first 100 is. If you have a favourite, please let me know by direct messaging me on Twitter or Instagram at MTF_podcast or at Benji_Eagle. Right now, though, let's go over to today's feature.
It's Farmer Focus.
This evening, I'm heading up to the Isle of Iona in Western Scotland to speak to Andrew Prentice, who farms Scottish blackface sheep and Highland cattle on 240 acres on Iona, as well as some rough grazing on the Isle of Mull. Andrew, thanks so much for coming on the show. You're my first Scot for a while. How are you doing up there?
No problem. Yeah, not too bad yet. It's all right weather just now. It's not too windy. It's not bad. Not bad.
So tell us about the Isle of Iona. I've only been once, but it's a really beautiful part of the world.
My knowledge is a little bit limited because I'm not a local here. I've only been here for around 7 years. But yeah, the island itself. So to put it in perspective, it's around 3.5 miles long by about 1.5 miles. I don't know how many acres that equates to, but it's not huge.
Yeah.
Roughly, these numbers change, but in the winter, there's probably 120 to 140 residents all winter.
Okay.
And then obviously in the summer, that can double or triple with seasonal workers. Yeah, and it's obviously pretty famous for the Abbey and St. Columba Christianity, but I like to believe that it's important farming. Crofton is very productive ground compared to neighbouring Mull, so I'd like to think that's kind of a reason Columba came here because it was sustainable. So yeah, it's very brief. There's probably lots more you can talk about, but yeah, it's very picturesque, very nice, and quite a warm climate. We don't get any frost really. Wet, windy, as you'd expect on the west coast, but yeah, that's about it. All my knowledge.
Yeah. How big's the farming community?
Technically, there's 2 farms. So there's my I'll probably get there'll be 7 or 8 other crofters on the island. So yeah, 2 farms, and the thing is, there would be a lot more, but they're kind of, some of them's amalgamated and stuff now. Changing times all over the country, especially here. So yeah, so now that's roughly what it is.
And you're a first-generation farmer. You've been farming since 2009. What were you doing before you started farming?
In my own right, yeah, but I was always into farming one way or another. My grandfather had his own places. My father was, he's been a manager at an estate most of my life, so that kind of got the bug because I was brought up on the farm.
Yeah.
And then I went to school, finished school, went to college. I studied agricultural engineering at college, thinking that would be a path to get into some money. But I landed doing a year or 2 at college and took a job with an agricultural engineering contractor. That kind of put me off tractor work, to be fair. So then that's when I decided I wanted to run my own place with livestock. So yeah, that's how we got where we are now.
And the farm that you were specifically on Iona, how did you find that?
It was in a Scottish farmer. We'd been trawling lots of farm presses looking for tenants. We had a small tenancy in Aberdeenshire, about 90 acres, and we're very lucky to get that. But I soon realised I wanted to do it a bit more full time, so we needed a bigger unit.
Yep.
And where we were in Aberdeenshire is so competitive that we started looking elsewhere out of that area. And yeah, as I say, it appeared in the Scottish farmer. We had to figure out where it was, had a look at the island, and that's how it started.
Yeah, because I mean, even from Aberdeenshire, that's quite a move.
Yeah, it's totally different. But yeah, for livestock, it's more the kind of setup I wanted. That's what I wanted to do rather than tractors and all this kind of arable stuff. So yeah, that's how we are here.
Yeah. And tell us about the farm itself. What was it like when you first arrived, and how's it changed, if at all?
The farm had sat empty for a few years before we arrived. So yeah, it was quite overgrown. So we had to deal with that. Some of the sheds were in disrepair, but to be fair, it's National Trust for Scotland's our landlord. They put one of the sheds right before we moved it in, and the second one they supplied me with material, and I've fixed the sheds myself.
Brilliant.
So yeah, we've got electricity, lights in the shed, running water, stuff that wasn't there before. They're sealed from the weather. So that and then obviously just grazing. It's kind of tricky. We're in a lot of schemes to manage corncrake, so the grass needs improved yet, but obviously when you're trying to manage stuff, it delays when you can cut things and weed control. So yeah, it adds some pressures. But yeah, I'd like to think we've improved the farm since we came here.
Yeah. And you also graze some land on Mull, which is common grazing. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so we just took that on. I think this is our third winter. It really is just hill grazing. It's quite heathery hill, quite boggy. There is 20 odd acre of kind of good grass. I've just got it on a 5-year lease, so I'm just playing it by ear at the moment. What I do just now is we put our any cows or beef cattle are over there just now, away from the breeding herd, and like our yow lambs from last year, I've just put them over, so we kind of winter our replacement stock over there. But yeah, I'm just playing it by ear. I mean, if after 5 years we get it extended, I'll obviously put a wee bit more in. But it just allows us to concentrate on the breeding cattle and the breeding yows here, and all the replacement stuff's over out the road. But yeah, it's rough hill.
Yeah, is that in? I'm trying to vision. Is it like the southwest part of the island, or?
Yeah, it's on the Ross and Mull. So
yeah, I remember that. I remember that
exclude
road.
The ferry, it's
It's quite a dramatic place.
Yeah, the roads are tricky if you're not used to single track, and it's single track from one end to other. So it's not a case of there's much place to overtake people. You rely on people in front pulling over. So yeah, it's quite if you haven't done it before, it's quite stressful. Absolutely.
Yeah, I was going to say, I pride myself on having been on quite a lot of weird and wonderful roads on most parts of the country, but I think that was definitely up there. Yeah, but has Mull or Iona changed at all? I'm thinking generally here since you moved there. I suppose that's like 10 odd years.
Yeah, I guess it has. There's a lot of there is a lot of development in Iona, especially, but also in Mull, they're doing a lot of community-driven housing and things just to attract people here to keep it, to keep the community sustainable. We need people here so shops can open and all these kind of things. So yeah, I would say that's the biggest change. And I guess pre-COVID, but even with COVID, the tourists, obviously everyone's been locked down, and the past kind of 2 months have been real hectic. And I don't blame people wanting out of these situations, but yeah, tourism has probably rocketed, probably before I came, but it seemed more than when I came as well.
I'm interested in just simply because, you're an island off an island. What's it like moving stock by boat, I assume?
Yeah, so it's not as complex as you think. Our ferry here takes it can take a full Arctic length.
Okay.
So I don't do. Because I put a lot of our meat through the abattoir on Mull, I transport a lot myself. So it's not that bad. The worst logistics is, for example, I'm going to a top sale on Saturday, but I have to leave the night before so I can make sure I'm there in the morning.
Yeah.
If I stay too late, it'll turn into a 3-day event instead of one. So that's probably the worst bit of it, rather than just putting the trailer on and driving on. That bit isn't too bad. I mean, don't get me wrong, it has extra costs. If I was to a load of sheep from Iona to Oban, for example, will cost me probably about £80 to £100 on ferry ticket plus your fuel. So you've got that a bit of a disadvantage before you hit the market. But no, the physical bit isn't too bad. It's just planning it all in time and stuff like that.
Yeah.
We decided to go organic, so we've converted organic as of July. And I went and bought some organic feed buckets there just now, and they're about a tenner a bucket more than a standard one.
Wow.
So yeah, that's making it a lot worse than standard stuff. But Yeah, so yeah, like I say, any business out here is going to face extra costs with the ferry, and same in the winter. Sometimes the ferry can be off for 2 or 3 days. It's not all the time,
Yeah.
but you can get a bad spell of weather and actually stuck. So you have to kind of forward think, have stuff ordered, and have a bit of a supply in case you run out. So
Why did you decide to go organic?
so a few reasons. Obviously, the subsidy as a new entrant, it was a bit more cash to get us kind of, to get us buying more breeding stock, etc. Obviously, first 2 years are a bit higher than the next three, but the other thing is we were pretty much farming organically anyway. Haven't put any fertilizer on, don't use chemicals.
Yeah.
We're half of it anyway, so I didn't see it as a massive change. And then I guess the third kind of reason is, because the abattoir mall, there is a lot of people at certain times of year selling lamb and beef and things. So I was just wanting ours to have a slight niche. And
Yep.
because Iona is pretty fertile, as we've already said, I can, of potential that I could grow some kind of winter kale or stuff, so I don't need to buy anything in.
Yeah, yeah.
And it just gives me a little niche over competitors, and I was doing it anyway.
I mean, on top of that, you do a fair amount of conservation work on the farm, including wader management and corn crake management specifically. Tell us a bit about that, about the corn crake, why it's important to conserve them, what you do to conserve them.
Yeah, so the corn crake is very rare now. They used to be all over the UK. They're kind of now confined to the west coast, especially the islands, and I think the west coast of Ireland has quite a decent population too. But there's like books of corn crake pie from the early 1900s, so that shows
Huh.
you how common they were. And then I didn't even know what a corn crake was till I come over here, and then you realise that they are, as I said, confined to these areas. So if you don't know what a corn crake is, it's about the size of a partridge, I guess. It's not much bigger. They do this really loud rasping noise
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it?
when they arrive. Yeah. But if you don't know what it is, it's quite. You're like, oh, what's
Yeah.
that? And then you soon learn. And it gets quite. When you live here, it gets quite tedious over the summer every night. But it's still good that you're saving this kind of rare bird. I mean, again, I don't know all the ins and outs, but they're migratory birds, and I'm sure they head to Africa in the winter
Okay.
with their offspring, their grown offspring, and where they were reared, they will come back to that same area the following year to reproduce. So yeah,
Amazing.
it's quite a cool wee thing to try and preserve it.
Yeah, big time.
So the waders is much the same. It's just ground that we kind of we can't graze it from kind of March to September. It just allows the waders to breed, just to encourage them to rear more young. And I guess quickly, I didn't really touch on how you conserve corn crake. It's the same idea. There's 2 or 3 different schemes we're in. So that one of them is corn crake management. So that's from March to September. That allows the corn crake to come here early. And then they progress into your hay and silage fields kind of April, May. So you can't cut in, and that lets them rear 1 or 2 batches of young. And obviously when you cut the hay or silage, you have to cut from the inside of the field out, which is kind of against everything you've been taught as a farmer, how to tackle a field. But yeah, you just to push the corn crake to the out of the field and then away from the mower. So obviously,
Yep.
when I do that, but I also, if you see them, I just generally stop the tractor a wee second and let them, move away, and I've done my bit. So yeah, that's what we do there with both types of birds.
You've also got some holiday accommodation on the farm. Tell me about that.
Yeah, it's just we've just got one at the moment. It's just a wee holiday pod. So it's just like a shed, but in the shape of a kind of half circular dome. I'm sure people are pretty familiar with a pod.
Yeah.
But so we've got that. It's kind of, it's not in our garden as such. It's in a wee paddock quite close to the house, and then we've a shower and bathroom at the back of our house that we never use, so that the guests use. So it's Airbnb. They let it for a day, 2 days, whatever they want.
Yeah.
It's just really a hangout for exploring Iona. It's pretty basic. It's got 2 beds. It's got a kettle, teas, coffees, little stove, so you can get out the elements, chill out a bit. You've got the shower in the bathroom, and like I say, it's just a wee home base for exploring the island and keeping out the weather.
Yeah. How's business with that been during lockdown?
Obviously, we had nothing from March to the second week of July.
Wow.
And it was really depressing because we've had it a couple of years and it's getting busier and busier. And before lockdown, we had it booked every day from 1st of April right up to the end of October. Obviously, they got all cancelled. But from middle of July to the beginning of October has been real busy.
Good.
I couldn't get an exact figure, but probably like 85% occupancy. And October, I've had 10 or so people, but there's so much uncertainty with lockdown and local lockdowns and who's allowed to travel. So I'll just take whatever comes. We do what we did. It's got us through a little bit, and we've got it. We've got it for the future when things do come right. So it's not all bad. Not all bad.
I mean, what's the corona situation like in your part of the world?
Yeah, so central Scotland's quite bad. It'll be getting similar to hotspots in England like Liverpool and Manchester and things like that. But obviously Scotland haven't announced their traffic light system yet. But Central Belt's on quite a hard set of rules. When you come out past that, though, Oban and all the West Coast is pretty low numbers. So I mean, if anyone's been on the ferry before and what it is now, it's completely different because you can't sit within a meter or whatever. You've all masked up, so it's quite it's quite an uncomfortable journey, really. But it's needed. It has to happen, and it allows us to continue. But it's not. We're very lucky. I mean, even during lockdown, not just being on an island, but being on a farm, you were going about your own business. So although you were locked down, you weren't going anywhere. It felt a little bit normal. It was never going to be normal, but you had some kind of routine and things. So.
Okay, we're going to move on to general challenges in ag. So when I was doing the research for this podcast, I asked you what you think are some of the biggest challenges in agriculture at the moment. And one of the things you said, which I thought was actually was a really good thing here, was proving our relevance just now. I'm interested in what you mean by that and how we tackle it.
Yeah. So anyone who's on Facebook or Twitter, you can see there's a lot of it's not lots of negativity against farming, but there's certain groups. And I guess what I'm saying when we challenge our relevance, it's like, we're getting blamed for climate change, we're getting blamed for flooding, we're getting for this, blamed for that, blamed for intensity. There's a lot to try and explain to people. And I think that is the main thing, is explaining or showing people what we're actually doing. Because I know 2 or 3 people who have become vegan just by watching like a video clip on Facebook, maybe somewhere like South America or something like this, very intense, very, just different to what we're in the UK.
Yeah.
So, that's one to show people that, not just animals, the crop, everything we do in the UK is nothing like what people have pushed at them. And as people have seen, with the Westminster Ag Bill, there's so much pressure on us to try and explain we're part of this, all of these things: climate change, sustainable practices. It's all stuff that most of us are already doing or considering. So we just have to. Just paint a great picture of what we are doing and not what we're not doing.
You mentioned the agriculture bill. Brexit is going to usher in a lot of change for the industry over the next several years in all parts of the UK. What are the opportunities and challenges of Brexit for you?
I think the worst outcome of Brexit is, it doesn't affect us so much, but hill breed sheep, a lot of that, the lightweight lambs and stuff went to France and Europe. So I see that being a bit of a problem for the ones that aren't marketing stuff themselves. So we're going to have that to deal with. There's other things too, regulations and stuff. I really hope that I know Europe's get us a lot of paperwork and stuff, but I really hope we adopt the attitude that we have, high welfare, keeping tabs of medicines and how we use them, when we use them. We've a whole catalogue of when we use stuff and how we use it. So with all that recorded data, we need to keep that going. Yeah, that's the kind of negatives. The positives I see is more direct market stuff. Although Westminster don't seem to have backed what our high standards of what we're doing, but you see a lot of polls over the coronavirus. A lot of the public have actively looked more now to source stuff within a reasonable amount of distance. So I think I see that as an opportunity to play on our high standards and do more. But there's a whole catalogue of things that could or couldn't happen. We don't really make much machinery etc. in the UK, so that that could affect bigger arable units. That the price of their kind of stuff's going to go up. And again, I don't know much about grain markets and stuff, but it's going to be similar to what we have to deal with livestock. I suspect there's going to be more paperwork and access to markets are different. And then we've obviously got the chat of importing stuff. Stuff.
Exactly.
Vast swathes of stuff getting imported to the UK. So I don't know how I feel about it overall. Quietly confident, I guess, but with caution.
Underlying all this, there is, which you have mentioned earlier, but there is the issue of climate change. Are you already seeing any impact in Western Scotland?
Yeah, because more so in the short term. When I first came here, like the summer I came here, it was maybe just a year, or maybe it was a trick to get us to move here. I don't know. But we could we could have made hay all summer, every day from May till September. It was dry all summer. But the last 2, if not 3 years, have changed. So you go into October, November, not too bad. December, reasonable. What you'd expect for winter.
Yep.
Early January, okay, and then you seem to get rain from mid-January right through till kind of start of lambing, so end of March, April. And again, the past 2 years, you've had a nice wee window, kind of May, June for hay and stuff, and then July, August, soaking wet. So I reckon that's a shift in climate. It just makes you, just when you're in concrete schemes and all this other stuff, you get pretty frustrated because there's going to be a wee window late July and you can't get it, and it's frustrating. I fear that's how it's going to roll.
What are your plans for the next few years?
So I touched on it briefly there. We're hoping we get this electronic equipment. I've got an EID Ion, they're called. So it's basically a little laptop in a handheld setup, so you can scan a sheep tag at lambing time. Amazing. You can tag your lamb, scan the lamb, you can log all the data. You can, hopefully we're going to weigh the lamb at birth. We're going to do a little bit of performance recording of our flock, not Brilliant. All out just based on weight, but I want to kind of, what I want to do is get a bit more commercial power on the stock, but still keep the kind of pedigree look and stuff. So I want best of both worlds, and I reckon logging data and weighing is going to give me a good grasp on that. We've kind of sit stagnant with our stock numbers, but I really want to push through and get up to 20 pedigree cattle and 200 ewes. I think that's a good figure to work with, given that we're finishing all of our meat stock. We're finishing everything, so it doesn't sound like a lot of head of breeding stock, but if you consider all the lambs you're keeping for most of the following year, it's a lot of lives on the ground. So
absolutely,
and as I touched on before, because we're organic, and I don't want to, when the subsidy goes in 5 years, I don't want to come out of organic. I want to keep it there. I want to remain organic. So as I said, I want to try and grow some kind of winter feed that will allow me to carry on without buying in so much stuff. So and ideally I would love to sell a decent priced cow or bull at one of these Highland cow sales, but we're we're new to it, so we have a lot to learn.
Well, you never know when it's going to happen. We always finish the show with the same two questions. The first one is, if you had a message for the public, what would it be and why?
Yeah, well, again, we've probably already talked through it. My message to the public would be follow a farmer or follow loads of farmers, whatever, and just get a proper insight to what we're doing. And yeah, ask us questions. We do not bite. We love to try and tell you what we're doing, or, there's I get a lot of silly questions like, why have you put that color on the sheep? So, it's not, but it's not silly. If you ask the question, you'll get the answer and then you'll learn. So yeah, that's my advice. Ask the questions.
Brilliant. And finally, a message for your fellow farmers.
Yeah, again, we've already said, just keep at it, guys, on social media. Keep telling that story. We need to do like Gareth and all these bigger, higher up the Twitter food chain than us, but these guys are doing great, showing people and little video chats. I've not plucked up the courage to do one yet, but Gareth's I feel like watching him, I've inspired him to kind of do one myself. I haven't, but I will try and do it, because I think it engages with the public really well if they can see in your surroundings and see what you're doing. I think, like I say, it might be boring to all of us, but to some of these folk, it's probably really interesting for them. So yeah.
Well, Andrew, thanks so much for coming on the podcast. It's been a real pleasure having you here, and really interesting, honestly, really interesting insight into your part of the world and what it's like to farm there. So thank you.
No problem. Nice to try and show what we're doing out here. It was sometimes, like I said to you earlier, it's like being on the edge of the world in winter sometimes, because if you look to the west, there's nothing but the Atlantic, so you've not really got anything to take your mind off winter, but you feel like you're on the edge. But no, it's great to try and explain and show what we're doing, show what we're trying to do, and we've got a future, I think.
It's Farmer Focus.
Andrew Prentice, who farms on the Isle of Iona. And we were in Ireland last time, Scotland for this episode, and next time join me when we'll be in Wales, and I'll be speaking to farmer, lecturer, NFU county chair and cider maker Kate Bevan, who you might remember from the BBC's very first Lambing Live a few years back. So I'll see you on Monday, but until then, have a great weekend.